100 Days of Stardew Valley. That is the challenge that I've seen around on YouTube quite a lot recently, and I've always wanted to try, but I've never felt brave enough to attempt it, not until today. Today is the major turning point for me. Today is the day that I rip off the band-aid, that I pull the trigger, that I start us on a journey that I will never forget. This is going to be a massive undertaking, but I feel that I am finally ready for it. I'm sure during these 100 days we will be breaking open a lot of geodes. We will be fishing, we will be harvesting, we will be doing all of those cozy, wonderful Stardew Valley things. Hopefully we'll be completing community center bundles. Maybe we'll even be completing community center rooms and completely refreshing them. Hopefully we'll be building friendships with the Pelican Town townspeople, and even maybe romancing someone. I hope that we can get through the mines and complete all of the goals that I set in my goal setting video when I first announced that I would be doing this challenge. Honestly, this might be the biggest challenge that I've ever taken on before, because although I have completed some pretty massive challenges before in the past, including the 100 baby challenge in The Sims 4, I've never actually attempted any sort of a 100 days challenge before, and honestly I'm really excited to do so. Because although this thought completely and utterly terrifies me, I'm also extremely excited to try it. It looks like a whole lot of fun, and I can't wait to experience all of the ups and downs of this challenge alongside you, and I hope that you very much enjoy this kind of long video. And without further ado, let's get into those 100 days. On day 1, I started off by collecting my 15 parsnip seeds that Lewis gave me, and then I headed outside to clear an area to plant them. On the hilltop farm, you don't have a lot of good areas to plant crops, which I did find a little annoying at first, but then I kind of settled in and got used to it. I did run myself out of energy pretty quickly on the first day, but that was fine because one of my other major goals was to just greet everybody that I could in town to complete that first quest. Then I headed to Pierre's to go ahead and buy myself my first round of seeds. My first round of seeds was just some parsnips and tulips because since I selected the remixed bundles for the community center, I wasn't sure what all I was going to need to have planted, and I figured just getting parsnips and tulips would be the safest bet for now. I also did a little bit of foraging at the beach to try and get some shells that I could sell for some money, and then I watered some more crops and headed to bed to collect my 70 grams for the day. So day 2, I had a lot on my plate. First, I had to start off the day by watering all of my crops, which did nearly exhaust me, I'm not gonna lie. And then I headed over to the quarry section of the hilltop farm, which I hadn't been able to explore the day previous because I've been so busy trying to meet everyone. But I got a couple of geodes and some copper ore, which was good, and then I headed over to Clint to break open the geodes, where I only got clay, some more copper, and my first ever jamborite. After that, I deposited it at the museum before going about the rest of my chores for the day, which was to meet more townspeople and do a bit more foraging, before going to bed at about 6:30, which was a bit early, but honestly I didn't have the energy for anything else that day. Instead, I collected my first level up in foraging and called it a day. Day 3, it was raining, so I just finished meeting all the townspeople, completed a couple of quests, and then I headed to bed and leveled up in mining for the first time. On day 4, I had quite the to-do list ahead of me, so I started by watering all of my crops and then heading to the quarry section of my farm to clean off any of the copper ore or stone that was there, and I collected my first copper bar that had smelted overnight in my furnace to complete that quest from Clint. Speaking of a quest completion, I also met Jazz to complete my introductions quest, did a little bit of foraging, and then I bought some seeds from Pierre to finish off my parsnip area before heading back to Pierre's to give Elliot his first ever gift for this playthrough, which did change the entire course of the playthrough, I'm not gonna lie, because I was going to originally romance Elliot, but his disdainful portrait at my precious daffodil that I gave him as his first present was more than enough reason for me to change my mind. Then I headed down to the beach to do some fishing while I contemplated my life choices in Stardew, and I got level 1 fishing overnight, so I guess it was worth it in some way or another. The money was just an added bonus. The fifth day started off with a bang, literally, because I found out that the mines were opened before heading down to do my parsnip harvest, which was the first for the season. Then I headed into town and found out that Willie was asking for 2 smallmouth bass, so I went ahead and started fishing for those in the river beside Alex's house, where I did chat Alex and Shane up as he went by for work before heading into Pierre's to buy some more seeds, this time opting to pick up some potatoes because I knew those would be highly profitable this season. And then I went and told Willie that I completed his quest before going back and fishing at the ocean outside of his house. And I do fear that fishing is something I'm going to be having to do a lot of this playthrough, because obviously I want to reach level 10 of fishing before the first year is up, and then I also want to make quite a bit of money, and early game fishing is really the best way to do that. And since I plan on mostly focusing on mining at the end of the year so that I can get to the bottom of the mines, I want to make sure as much as possible that I get the fishing done as early in the year as I can. I did at some point go back to Pierre's and buy some more seeds. I bought some blue jazz seeds and also some more parsnip seeds, and I did plant some carrot seeds that I found while I was doing some foraging before going to bed that night and leveling up in farming. On day 6, I unlocked the community center, so I went in and read that scroll so that the wizard can send his letter to me tomorrow. And then I went home and crafted a scarecrow and placed it down to protect my crops. And then I got started on a little bit of decorating, which I know it may seem a little early in the year to be doing that to you guys, but what can I say, I'm an aesthetic girly and I love decorating my Stardew Valley farm. After a teensy bit more decorating, I headed to bed and got my first ever overnight cutscene of the fairy coming to my farm and sprinkling a little bit of her magical dust on my crops, which means I'm going to have a harvest in the morning, and I also unlocked level 2 foraging overnight as well. Day 7 started off with me learning how to cook stir fry from my very first Queen of Sauce episode, and then I came outside to find that the wizard had sent me his letter about the community center before going to harvest all of my potatoes, parsnips, and even a couple of blue jazz, which I then sold straight to Pierre so that I could buy myself a backpack upgrade, because I'm not gonna lie, not having a backpack upgrade and trying to fish was becoming extremely difficult. I then accepted a help wanted board request from Maru to get a leek, and then I headed down to go ahead and see the wizard, where I stopped briefly just to look through the traveling cart lady and see what she had in stock. And then I skipped the cutscene with the wizard because honestly I couldn't be bothered to watch it again, before heading out to the river beside Jojamart to do some fishing, which I did for about 6 Stardew hours straight. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, after this fishing session, if I wouldn't have gotten a level up, I would have been sorely disappointed. But thankfully overnight I did get a level up in farming and fishing and foraging, which brings me to level 2 farming, level 2 fishing, and level 3 foraging overall, which for my first week I think is pretty good, but then I might be a little biased. Day 8 started with a small tulip harvest before I watered all of my crops, and then I headed into town to start taking care of my daily chores, which started with me going to Pierre's to sell them to him in order to afford some tulip, blue jazz, and potato seeds. I donated a little bit of topaz to the museum, and then I started fishing by Linus to get some chubs to complete a help wanted request that I accepted from Willie for 100 grams, which also earned me a prize ticket, which I turned in at Lewis's for 12 carrot seeds, which I did end up planting as well. And then I completed a few more chores around the farm, which included some cleanup to get some wood for future projects that I have planned. One thing that I have planned for these 100 days is to start getting kegs as early as possible so that I can start juicing a lot of my products and even making some wine at some point, which will greatly increase my profits from my crops, which is something that I am desperately looking forward to. I got a small parsnip harvest at the start of day 9, which I quickly replaced over at Pierre's before I went and donated the entire spring foraging bundle to complete my first ever community center bundle, which earned me my first 30 spring seeds and also unlocked a few different bundles for me to check out. Most of today was honestly spent fishing after I checked out all of the other now opened up bundles, and I was able to see what fish I needed to complete that section of the community center. All of that fishing leveled me up to level 3 before bed, which unlocked crab pots and the Dish of the Sea recipe, which I will need to cook if I want to reach perfection at some point in this save, which I've never actually reached perfection before in any Stardew Valley save that I've played. So if you guys want me to try and reach perfection in this save, do let me know in the comments down below, and I'll definitely consider doing it. On your way down to comment, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, because I do plan on doing a 200 days at some point, and I don't want you guys missing it. On day 10, I started off my day by taking care of all of my crops, and then I headed to the community center to do a mass donation. So I donated a lot of things today, but the most important of which was the spring crop bundle, which I basically was able to donate everything to. I also donated 3 out of 5 things to the crab pot bundle, and even some ocean and lake fishes to those bundles as well. The rest of the day I spent fishing, which honestly I'm getting so tired of fishing by this point, and it's only 10 days into it, so that's honestly probably not a good sign. And I did take a break in the forest to get some spring onions at some point. And I also got a level up in fishing overnight to fishing level 4, which does unlock quite a few good rewards. Robin sent me a letter in the mail on day 11 letting me know that she had lost her favorite axe. So after I completed all of my farm chores and I was going to head to town anyway, I decided to go down through the forest and collect some spring onions and get the axe for Robin. And then after that, I headed straight to Clint's to break open some more geodes, where I got a few minerals that I hadn't already, so I donated those to the museum after. All of these donations earned me 9 cauliflower seeds, which I collected before heading to Pierre's to resell some forage I had gathered and get some potato seeds. I checked the bookseller for the first time after, because I haven't actually got to check it out since the 1.6 edition of it, and I honestly found the prices outrageous, especially for early game. Like, who is buying these in the first spring? Then I went mining for a while, which I leveled up in overnight, which honestly is a lifesaver because I did pass out for the first time on day 11 because of that mining trip. And honestly, if I wouldn't have leveled up in mining overnight, I wouldn't have had enough energy the next day to do anything. On the 12th day of spring, I was finally reunited with my puppers, Boots, and Stardew, which honestly was the highlight of my day, because I really thought that Marnie for some reason showed up on like the 5th day of spring, and so when I didn't get Boots, I was like, excuse me, is Marnie trying to jip me out of my dog here? Afterwards, I found out that Joja had charged me 373 grams because I passed out the night before, but it didn't bother me because I opened some geodes and went to donate some things to the museum, where I got 9 melon seeds and my first ancient seed. I think day 12 might be the fastest I've ever gotten an ancient seed, which is really cool and inspired me to fish for the rest of the day before I checked the traveling cart and made another mistake before bed. Trust me when I say that I really regret not buying that rare seed. The day of the egg hunt was fairly short. I started my day off with a small harvest of parsnips before I watered the rest of my crops, and then headed into town to go ahead and start the festival, where I bought a ton of strawberry seeds from Pierre. And then I started the egg hunt, which I won with 9 eggs, and I'm sure that disappointed Abigail, but honestly I couldn't care less because I needed that hat. Day 14 was an extremely short day because after I finished all of my basic farm chores, I went immediately over to the mine so I could spend the entire day mining. I only got from level 6 to level 11, which isn't super great, but I did level up overnight in the farming and also in combat, so that is pretty good. According to Living Off the Land, day 15 was officially the start of salmonberry season, so after harvesting all of my blue jazz off of the farm, I stopped by Pierre's to sell them in order to open up more inventory space so I could hunt some down. During my search, I made another quick stop in town by Clint's so I could break open a few geos I had gathered over the last couple of days, which earned me some rocks and some gems, one of which I was able to donate to the museum so that hopefully I could get some rewards again soon. I planned on mining after, but the first floor I entered in the mines was quite literally infested with monsters, so I took that as a sign that I might want to fish instead. So that is what I did for the entire rest of day 15. Unfortunately, this didn't earn me a level up overnight in fishing, but it did earn me 457 grams. Day 16 was a pretty normal Stardew day all in all. I started mining at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon and got down to floor 15 from floor 11 before I left to go buy some beer at the saloon for Shane's upcoming birthday. You heard me right. With only a few days left till the flower dance, my best chance at a partner was Shane. This thought, along with having to talk to Clint to complete a quest, drove me all the way back to the mines for the night, where I slayed some slime for a quest for Mayor Lewis, which is honestly worse than having to talk to Clint. Day 17 was a really good day for Cozy Farm, starting off with a carrot and potato harvest. I followed that up with smelting some much needed copper ore into much needed copper bars. After that, I headed into town, where Sam stopped me to ask what his new song should be about. I didn't really care, and honestly, I didn't find most of the options interesting, but I chose the city and the sea anyway. We'll see if that actually affects anything later, I guess. Then I broke open more geodes, donated some things to the museum, and even talked to Mayor Lewis so he would pay up for the slimes that I slayed. He told me a long story that he later reused, which I thought was so Lewis of him. I finished out the day with some donations to the community center before heading home to get some much needed shut-eye. Day 18 was a fairly short day. I spent the majority of it down in the mines, mining all the way from level 15 to level 20. Overnight, this earned me a level up in mining to level 3 and in combat all the way to level 2. Day 19 started with my worst nightmare. I had to make Jody happy by giving her a cauliflower that she said she was going to use in some recipe that I'm sure she absolutely ruined. In an attempt to forget that I donated one of my precious cauliflowers to none other than Jody, I broke open some geodes and donated a scroll to the museum before I accepted a help wanted request that Marnie had posted asking for some seaweed. I pretty much instantly dropped that off and then turned the ticket in that she gave me for an orange sapling at Lewis's. Afterwards, I spent much of the night fishing by the sewer, which is where I felt I belonged after helping Jody, to get some fish for the community center. Mystery boxes were unlocked overnight, which gave me some hopes for day 20. The high hopes that I held for day 20 on day 19 were actually met pretty early in the day when I finished the crab bundle at the community center. This earned me more crab pots, which I didn't really need, but I did place in the river by the community center before completing a quest from Linus. For some reason that I really cannot explain to you after this, I spent most of day 20 fishing at different locations, and if I'm being completely honest, it was totally not worth it until I found another ancient seed in a treasure chest. Seriously, my luck in this save is completely unmatched, which I celebrated at the saloon by giving Leah and birthday boy Shane some presents. Shane loved his so much we hit 3 out of 8 hearts, and that basically guaranteed me a dance partner for this year's flower dance. Yeehaw. I bought a few more beers for later bribing for Shane and did a little more fishing before heading to bed, where I leveled up to level 4 foraging and level 5 fishing. I chose the fisher profession, making fish worth 25% more. Although I don't like fishing very much, this is still one of my favorite professions in Stardew just because I love making a little extra money. To start day 21, I had a friendly little recipe gifting competition going on between the Queen of Sauce and Shane. The Queen of Sauce taught me how to make radish salad, but Shane mailed me the pepper poppers recipe. So I think that all in all, Shane won day 21's recipe gifting competition. My dad mailed me 500 grams as well, but I was too focused on my massive strawberry harvest to care. This, as well as future strawberry harvest, was going to make me filthy rich, aka every Stardew Valley farmer's dream. I built a coop at Robin's to celebrate my strawberry harvest after, and placed it in the quarry area on my farm for now. Not ideal, but it would have to do. I broke open some mystery boxes and did some, you guessed it, donating to the museum before I ran into the kids playing at the sewer in the forest. I skipped this cutscene in favor of doing something even more meaningless: fishing. I'm not gonna lie, fishing in Stardew normally isn't so boring, but for some reason this playthrough it is just taking it out of me, and I honestly do not want to ever fish again after this. Which is making a Stardew challenge that I came up with to do after this look like a huge challenge, just because I literally hate fishing now. That night, I bought more beer and donated some fish to the community center and also leveled up in farming overnight. Day 22 started with a spring seeds and a miniature strawberry harvest. After that, I filled up my crab pots in the river by the community center, and I'm not going to lie to you, you probably won't see me do it again, because I low-key forget about them after this, because the crab pots are just so forgettable. Like, I don't think I've ever filled them up regularly before. Something I won't forget about though is seeing Morris's full body Sprite for the first time in Pierre's when I went to sell some of my morning harvest and buy some parsnip seeds. I absolutely hate the way his collar looks from the back. Like, it is so unnatural. I have no idea why it looks that way, and honestly I wish Concerned Ape would fix it. I spent the rest of the day mining and thinking about how awful that collar is. And let's be honest, you would have too. I can't lie to you guys, I did lose some of the footage for day 23 after 3 p.m, but I will say that I spent most of the day mining after I went to the community center and finished up the spring crops bundle, so you didn't really miss that much. The day of the flower dance had arrived, and it was sure to be an interesting one since I was forced to ask Shane to be my partner, but I decided I was going to make the best of it and buy the rare crow from Pierre when I got there. But I calculated and I wouldn't have had enough funds after for my summer crops, so I decided against it when I arrived. Shane stopped eating just in time to be able to dance with me, and honestly, I gotta say, he did a better job following the choreo than I did, because honestly, your Stardew character never does. If anyone knows how to make a matching outfit for the flower dance, seriously, let me know. My coop was finally done the morning of the 25th, so after I harvested another round of strawberries, which quite literally made my day to do, I headed over to check it out and clear the rocks from around it so that my animals would have more room to roam. Speaking of, I headed to Marty's to buy some chickens, and I found Shane passed out in his room. A little water from my can later, and all was well, so I went ahead and purchased some chickens from Marty, who actually was in her store. I guess it was the first time for everything. I adopted chickens Colby and Cheddar, who I named after cheeses, and then I went about making a couple of preserve jars once I got home for my strawberries and a mayo machine for future eggs. For my rather cheesily named chickens, full pun intended. Oh, and in case you were wondering, I have officially rebounded from my initial idea of romancing Elliot, and I've chosen Shane to be my official romance partner. Day 26 started with a mistake that will haunt me the rest of my life, and no, it's not my decision to marry Shane. I chose the mushroom cave from Demetrius, which, with the addition of the mushroom log in 1.6, was completely useless, as I discovered later. Also, getting the apples for the fodder bundle would have been so much faster than waiting on a tree. Aside from that absolutely horrible news, I harvested more strawberries, which made me happy, some carrots, and a bunch of parsnips before heading into town. Despite the fact I feel like Demetrius totally backstabbed me by allowing me to choose the mushroom cave, I did go ahead and accept his help wanted request because at this point I hadn't realized how much I messed up. And then I went up to the lake beside his house to fish peacefully because again, I hadn't realized how much I messed up. I really miss that feeling of not knowing how much I messed up, but anyway, I donated a little to the community center before I went to bed and I earned level 6 fishing overnight. Day 27 started with me realizing I forgot to check in on the chicks yesterday and they had gotten blocked in the coop. In order to avoid it happening again, I placed a pathway outside their door to prevent future rocks. And then I went fishing in town. I also made a stop in town to gift Sebastian a fish before continuing fishing up in the lake by his parents. The last day of spring arrived, and I received a letter from Willie informing me that he had new rods for sale. I high-key ignored it and donated a fish to the community center instead, and accepted a request from Clint to find some ores. Speaking of Clint, I had to force myself to endure his presence while I broke open some geodes I collected and even a mystery box. I didn't find much of use, I blame Clint, but I did manage to donate to the museum anyway. Afterwards, I finished up the day with some fishing in the river, I bet you didn't see that coming, and even fit in a little mining before heading to bed. Day 29, aka the first day of summer, was a busy day for me. I had to rehoe all of the land, which drained me of most of my energy, and I accepted my first help wanted request for the season on my way to Pierre. At Pierre's, I made a massive seed order of almost everything he had in stock for the start of season, before I headed over to Clint's for the first time in summer to open a geo. I ended up donating a scroll to the museum, and afterwards I bought some ice cream from Alex for the first time in my history of playing Stardew. for the children's bundle, which I promptly donated along with some summer forage to its bundle. I ran into Clint's again while I headed to the saloon, and I got my oars reward from the quest I accepted the day before, whilst on my way to get some salmon dinner for Alex's birthday later in the month. Shane reached 6 out of 8 hearts from a beer that I gave him while I happened to be there, and I celebrated this major milestone by doing a little bit of fishing. Day 30 started with my father sending me a letter in the mail, and me finding that my chickens had finally produced their first egg. Unfortunately, my stupid mushroom cave that I hate also had its first harvest. And yes, every single time I harvest this thing, I am forced to think about my mistake, and it only grows my hatred for it overall. I'm a fruit cave girly for life now. One prize ticket turn in and a little bit of donating to the community center later, and I was finally able to head to the beach to do some late night summer fishing for a few bundles. There was also an earthquake that night that opened up the spa, while I leveled up in fishing. Day 31 started with Lewis telling me about his embarrassing loss of his lucky purple shorts instead of telling me what the earthquake was about. Talk about priorities. My main priority for the day was starting my first tool upgrade at Clint's and building a silo at Robin's for my chickens and other future animals. I also made a donation to the museum as a part of my town-related chores before heading to the beach, where I spent the night fishing and trying to figure out where to put the chicken statue that I received from the museum. I then made a small donation to the community center and headed to bed. Brain woke my character up on day 32, which actually started my day off with really good luck, and the spirits seemed to agree. Living off the land spoke its first mention of the season's specialty fish, aka the Dorado. Thankfully, I didn't need it for the community center though, so I ignored it this time around. I didn't ignore the largemouth bass request from Willie on the Help Wanted board, however, and got started fishing for that right away. Trying to fish those 2 largemouth bass took me way longer than I planned on, so I finished off the spring foraging bundle and then headed to the saloon to talk to Willie and get my reward. But it was really late that night when I did so. So after that, I didn't really do much else. Overnight, I did make a fair bit of money from the lake fishing though, so I guess it was worth the effort. Mayor Lewis sent me 500 grams as prize money on day 33, but it sort of felt like a purple shorts bribe to me. I ignored that and went ahead and harvested my first batch of wheat and hay, which will come in handy for the winter time, and Clint returned me my copper axe once I got to town, which I celebrated by breaking open a ton of geodes and mystery boxes. This resulted in a smaller museum donation than you'd think, considering the amount of geodes, but oh well, at least I have my axe. I bought some cookies from Gus while I was in town and donated them straight to the community center to complete the children's bundle. I also donated a mushroom and then completed my lumber quest from Robin before heading to bed, where I leveled up in farming to level 6. More strawberry jam greeted me on day 34, but I was too busy heading to the community center to donate pepper to truly celebrate. Afterwards, I spent all day mining, starting at floor 15 and mined all the way to level 40. That's right, I cleared a whopping 25 levels today and unlocked a slingshot. I also completed a monster slayer goal, so I headed up and got my insect head, aka one of my favorite Stardew Valley weapons, as the reward. To my surprise, day 35, it was raining again, so I stayed inside my house a touch longer than usual so that my character could watch the Queen of Sauce show and learn the baked fish recipe before my character exited into the downpour hitting the valley. Thankfully, there was a harvest-shaped reward outside to greet me, and an easy quest from future boyfriend Shane up on the board outside of Pierre's as well. After a mass donation to the community center and various different bundles, I went and opened a geode at Clint's, which got me nothing before discovering Shane passed out by the cliffs by Marnie's. I was horrified, as was my character, and I told him the decision was ultimately his after much deliberation on it, which seemed to help him a little since it convinced him to go to Harvey. After that scary experience, I thought I should check in with his family, and Jazz's little portrait almost made me cry. As I mined the rest of the day, I decided that I could fix him. No, really, I could, and I leveled up in foraging, where I chose the forester profession and also mining overnight. Day 36 started with a heartfelt apology from Shane, and I told him that I accepted and was just glad he was still here. Ironically, after that sweet scene, I got a letter from Linus reminding me how I passed out the night prior, but I got a harvest after and that distracted me. from how much money I lost. I did a little trash fishing for my recycle machine and then did some community center donating and buying of 2 different vault bundles. I got fertilizer and cake for those, and on my way to give Gus a birthday gift, which I almost forgot about, I accepted a slime slaying quest. I gave Shane his wheat and reached 7 out of 8 hearts with him. Boyfriend, here I come. I also turned in a prize ticket at Mayor Lewis's house and got myself some mystery boxes before heading up to the mines so I could mine the rest of the day away. Future boyfriend Shane gave me the strange bun recipe to start day 37 with an OMG, this is a great kind of moment from me before I did another morning harvest of flowers and fruits and veggies. After I did all my farm chores, I went to town where I picked up another slime slaying request and broke open those mystery boxes I got from Lewis's the night before as a part of my daily town chores. If I'm being completely honest, I don't really love mystery boxes because they hardly ever give me anything that I actually like, but I do always break them open just in case. After I broke open all those mystery boxes at Clint's, I headed down to the beach to do some fishing there, and I did fish up an ancient fruit seed, which was pretty good. And then at some point I found an old sword that I donated to the museum, and I also made another ancient fruit seed packet to plant later. Day 38 was a fairly short day. It started off with a short harvest before I headed into the mines, where I spent the majority of the day mining before I completed a quest for slimes and leveled up in combat overnight, which unlocked a roots platter recipe, which I will need for perfection. Day 39 was the day of the luau, aka the first summer holiday. Unfortunately, I forgot you needed something gold star better to impress the governor, so he thought the soup was a little bland. And I honestly don't know who was sadder about that, me or Mayor Lewis. Honestly, this was a massive fail on my part, that I assure you I will not forget. Pierre alerted me on day 40 that I could officially start dating Shane, who had also sent me some pepper poppers. Afterwards, I tried to hurry and complete all of my farm chores, which did include a massive harvest of spring forages and a couple of other vegetables. Then I rushed over to town so that I could make a massive donation to the community center of some hay to the fodder bundle and also some aquamarine to a friendship bundle. I also completed the entire bundle of exotic foraging with some pine tar, and that earned me some autumn's bounty. Then I got what I came to town for, which was some seeds and more importantly my bouquet of datingness. I broke open some things at Clint's and donated to the museum to celebrate. I then made my way to the saloon where I waited for my future BF. Shane wasn't expecting my bouquet, but he accepted it, so I called that day a success. Day 41 started off a little odd with an anomalous weather reading and me getting some cash back from Greedy Pierre. I honestly don't know which one is more rare. I also did my first harvest as girlfriend to Shane farmer, and I did a little donating to the community center and accepted Marty's request for help in town before getting my gift-giving chores underway. I gave Pam a spare beer that I had and Alex a birthday gift of salmon dinner. Clint didn't get anything since all he gave me was a magic rock candy from my mystery box. I then spent the rest of the day mining and ended up powering through an infested floor to level 55, and I also leveled up in farming overnight, making day 41 pretty productive. Day 42 started with a suspiciously colored rain hitting the valley that cost me a Queen of Sauce recipe. Miffed, I headed out and accepted a request for a pale ale from Pam. After my work, I checked in at the saloon and found most of the town there, and I'm gonna be honest, I actually really love the green rain and can't wait for the next appearance of it. Emily started off my day by letting me know I could use her sewing machine, and Jojo let me know that they charged me 1,000 grams for passing out during an in-game historic event. Classy. My poor character was exhausted, but managed to harvest the crops on day 43, which probably made up for the 1,000 grams. I walked into town and overheard Alex talking to Dusty, and TBH, it's a crime that Dusty doesn't move to the farm when you get married. Aside from that, I accepted Alex's help wanted request and took it to him before donating to the community center and completing the summer crops bundle. On my way home, I ran into my boyfriend Shane and got my first cutscene being boyfriend-girlfriend, and I think he low-key maybe flirted with my character before I headed home to level up in foraging overnight. I had a massive harvest on day 44 of mostly wheat and hay before heading into town for my daily town. Breaking open geodes and making even more museum donations was top of my to-do list, and I got a painting for my effort. I also donated to the community center and had a very strange discussion with Demetrius after. Like, I'm dating Shane, what is he talking? After that, I told Robin to increase my house size and got out of there, and then I headed straight to bed. On day 45, I had a slightly smaller harvest waiting for me on the farm and a rainbow trout request from Maru in town that I accepted despite Demetrius's probable objections. I collected a starter up tea from Lewis's using my prize ticket, and then I headed home. Day 46 was a sturgeon frenzy, so I spent a lot of it, you guessed it, up at the lake fishing for sturgeons. I stopped by the beach afterwards and visited the old marina, planning on purchasing my mermaid's pendant so I could go ahead and marry good old Shane as soon as possible, but he said the house had to be finished upgrading first, which, although it wasn't a problem, did certainly feel like he was being a buzzkill. Instead, I went ahead and headed up into town and completed a few community center bundles and bought another vault bundle before I headed home and went to bed. My house was finally finished the next day, and thankfully it was raining again, so that marina was about to be one more pendant short. As a farm-styled celebration, I bought 2 chickens that I named after more cheeses, this time going with Mozzie and Brie. I also grabbed Mayor Lewis's shorts from Marnie's room on my way out. I bought my pendants and accepted a request for more slimes and broke open even more mystery boxes. After that, I spent the rest of day 47 mining and hit floor 60 and level 4 combat and level 5 mining overnight, where I chose the geologist profession. On day 48, Demetrius had the gall to ask me for a melon after his massive cave betrayal a mere 22 days earlier, no less. I accepted anyway and went about my normal harvest fuming. I chilled out by the time I got to Clint's, where I broke open some more things and donated a lot of it to the museum. Then I tested mayo and cloth together in hopes it would make something wedding looking. It did not. I gave Demetrius a melon and finished my quest from Lewis, where he retold his story from before about the slimes, which was honestly not worth the money he gave me. After that, I spent the rest of the day in the mines trying to get just a little bit lower, and then I headed home to bed. Day 49 started with the Queen of Sauce teaching me how to cook Mackie roll, and Shane sending me a pizza in the mail. Afterwards, I harvested all of my crops to start my daily chores and headed into town to do the normal geode open museum donate routine. To spice things up, I went and donated to the community center before buying some seeds from Pierre's to transition into fall crops. The seeds consisted of wheat and corn, and then I headed into the mines to hopefully be able to unlock another elevator before bed, which I did not do, and then I headed home and went to sleep. Today makes the halfway point in the journey, and to celebrate, I got charged 343 grams from JojaMart because I passed out right beside my bed. To actually celebrate, I opened some geos and donated to the museum, where I was given a cute little bear I later put in my nursery. I did a little bit of mining and checked my monster slaying goals before completing my quest for Lewis and talking to Shane for the day. I allowed myself a short break to play some Journey of the Prairie King, which I failed, and then I headed home to start the second half of the challenge. I accepted a request from Clint to start day 51 and then broke open some geodes before donating to the museum, where I got my singing stone as a reward. By this point, I was pretty happy with the way that the museum was looking, so I left to go to the mines to get a little bit further in them, hopefully find some geodes, and of course collect those ores so that I could get my reward from Clint today, which I did before stopping by the forest so I could talk to Shane on our way home. Day 52 was engagement day for me and Shane, and although it wasn't the most romantic spot, we did get engaged in front of Joja before he hopefully worked his last shift before our marriage. Also, just as a side note, it is so adorable that he was just talking to me about his ragtag family before I officially made him a part of my family. Elated that I was now engaged, I went ahead and headed over to Clint's since I was in a good mood, and opened more geodes and mystery boxes, which, as you might assume, did result in another trip and donation to the museum. Lewis told me what Marnie's favorite thing was as I headed up to the community center so I could finish off that blacksmith bundle, which I did wonder how he knew while I harvested my crops. Then I was back in town where I somehow missed Alex's question, and got a double bed from Lewis's using my prize ticket. Then, just to be super productive, I headed up to the mines to hopefully unlock another elevator, which I did not do before I went to bed, and I reached level 8 farming overnight, which unlocks kegs. On day 53, I prepared my home for my upcoming wedding by placing the nicer bed that I got yesterday at Lewis's and paying my debts to Joja for passing out. I also accepted a quest from George, which I delivered before heading to the mines for the day, where I eventually reached 470. I leveled up to level 5 combat overnight, and I chose the fighter profession after much deliberation. The day before my wedding to Shane, aka day 54, started off with a big harvest and an all-day rainstorm. George wanted help on another quest, but I had to go break open a ton of geodes before I could go help him out. I got a lot, but I was only able to actually donate one thing to the museum, which was a total letdown. Afterwards, I went up and sold all of my spare swords to Marlin for a little bit of extra cash. I also did a little bit of foraging and fishing for some cash before bed and made quite a bit of a profit overnight. Guess who got married on the morning of day 55? This girl. Me and Shane spent our first shared day on the farm, aka summer 27th, with me donating to the museum again and earning all of my rewards from that, doing a little bit of decorating and a few other tasks before I headed off to bed. Day 56, aka the last day of summer, started with me starting an upgrade on my pickaxe at Clint's before I headed over to the community center to make my final summer donation. I can't believe that this season is already coming to a close. Afterwards, I did a little bit of fishing just cuz, and then I spent the dance at the Moonlight Jellies with my new husband Shane and the entire town, excited for what fall would hold for Cozy Farm. And let me just tell you guys right now, as a little glimpse into the future, fall is going to hold a lot for Cozy Farm. In fact, it may just be our best season yet. Day 57 was the start of fall, aka my favorite Stardew season, and I started the day off by rehoeing the land and of course doing my start of season planting, which did include my newly fenced off area right beside my farmhouse that I planned on using for mostly pumpkins. I accepted a help wanted request and bought more seeds from Pierre, which I'm sure made his bank account stay. I did a little donating at the community center and of course the museum, and then I headed off to bed. Shane gave me my first ever spousal present on the morning of day 58, which was a large egg, and although I didn't really need it since I have chickens, I still appreciated it. I celebrated with my first harvest of the season outside before heading into town. Clint delivered my copper pickaxe finally, which meant I could get back into the mining, and I went fishing in the river before giving Pam her pale ale on her way to Jojamart. Then I went back to donating at the community center where I finished 2 more bundles, and I donated to a few more. I hit level 8 fishing overnight as well as a result of all of that afternoon fishing that I had been doing, and I also made a fair chunk of change. After my farm chores, I did some just as important town chores on day 59. I accepted a help wanted request, broke open a geode, and even donated to the museum. Despite the fact I am very tired of fishing, I did spend the rest of the day fishing for various reasons, which was reflected in the cash that I made overnight. But I'm honestly still hoping this is one of my last fishing sessions because the cash still wasn't worth it. Demetria sent me the farm computer recipe in the mail, which still didn't make up for the mushroom cave. I accepted a help wanted request from Clint and donated to the museum after because Clint equals museum donation even without geodes. I also found out about mushroom logs, so mark day 60 as the start of my real rage about the mushroom cave. Clint had to have more help the afternoon of day 61, so I headed straight into the mines and didn't emerge until I had reached level 80. I also unlocked a new weapon from the chest on level 80, which did kind of distract me from completing the quest for Clint. Demetrius had a quest up on day 62 that I accepted before heading over to Clint's to start opening more geodes and mystery boxes. After that, I headed up to the mines to get closer to the bottom where I hit floor 90 and got a new sword. I also leveled up in mining overnight to level 8, which is one step closer to maxing out that skill. Shane gave me another spouse present today, this time an omelet to start day 63 off before I did my morning chores. After I headed into town where I accepted a help wanted request from Willie before heading over to Clint's to start the Geode Museum donate cycle again. Then I did some donating to the community center and ended my town trip at Robbins where I had to buy more wood so that I could build myself a barn. I hate having to buy wood from Robin's, but I had to do what I had to do. I also had to place it slightly awkwardly for now while I clear the quarry out a little bit because I did forget to do that before placing it, so I guess I'll be moving that after she finishes building it. I also stopped by and gave Marnie a quick diamond before I headed home to bed. Day 64 started with Shane reminding me about winter being just around the corner, and TBH at this point in the challenge, it certainly didn't feel like it. Linus sent me a letter requesting that I find his blueberry basket, so I made a note to do that, and the help wanted request from Clint that I accepted. I finished the Brewer's Bundle at the community center and did a few more donations there before heading into the mines. I got to floor 95, and on my way home I finished up the Treasure Hunter Bundle, and overnight I hit Foraging level 7. Day 65's morning was almost as busy as that afternoon. The afternoon included me picking up another help wanted request, this time from Alex, before I headed over to Clint's to do an absolutely massive magma geode opening haul. I got a lot of goodies from these geodes and donated a few of the goodies to the museum, some with more hesitation than others, admittedly. I haven't gotten a dwarf gadget before in this playthrough, and I didn't really want to give it up, but I knew that I needed. I accepted my first special order from that board, and this time I went with Pierre's Prime Produce. I also went ahead and got Linus's blueberry basket and went and delivered that to him up by the spa before I went and got some much needed shut-eye. On day 66, I stopped by Marnie's so that I could buy a milk pail and of course my first set of cows for my newly completed barn. For these names, I went with a cereal theme, and if you can guess all the cereals I end up using for the name inspo, then comment a smiling sun emoji down below. Your only hint for the cereals is that the oats came in squares, similarly to the mystery box that I opened before heading over to the mines, where I made great progress all the way down to floor 100, where I received my first star drop. My favorite thing is of course boots, which the star drop reminded me of, which hopefully doesn't offend hubby Shane. Day 67 marked a major harvest day that unfortunately included the mushroom logs. The rain wasn't the only slightly depressing thing about today thanks to those logs. My big harvest of crops helped to soften the blow, as did getting to move my barn to a slightly better location. While breaking open geodes, I started plotting an even better spot for my barn and coop because honestly the quarry was just too far away. I went ahead and donated to the museum before accepting another help wanted request on my way home. At home, I crafted up some more kegs for beverage making and a farm computer since I found another dwarf gadget at Clint's. Honestly, the computer had a lot of really interesting information on it about my farm, and I especially liked how it knew how many crops that I had. 151 definitely felt a little bit overboard, and I kind of regretted planting all of them, but oh well, there's nothing I can do about that now. Pan gave me a battery on day 68 to help fuel me for the rest of this challenge, or at least that's how I interpreted it, and that encouraged me to start a pickaxe upgrade at Clint's that afternoon. Lewis gave me a fairly interesting tidbit that I appreciated about honey on my way to fish the rest of the day at the river. To be honest, I don't remember why I did this, but it had better been a good reason, because if I edit one more fishing day, I am never fishing in Stardew again. Day 69 started with a useless pile of quote-unquote quality stone in my mailbox that I know the mail person hated to see coming. I accepted Robin's request for help before going to give Abigail a birthday present. After me beating her at the egg hunt, I figured that she needed it. I then ran into Alex, where I had to give him not one, but 2 pep talks in the same day. They seemed to help him though, and that put me in a good enough mood to give Lewis his shorts back. They've been my hostage long enough, and although he didn't pay me enough for them, I'll let it slide for now because I think I'm going to be getting myself another pair. Day 70 started off with my pickaxe being ready for pickup after I got a spaghetti recipe from Lewis and an alert from Marnie that I could adopt more pets, which I certainly wasn't considering doing, cough cough. I also started on my huge pumpkin harvest among some other crops which I donated to the community center. I hit level 9 farming overnight and unlocked a seed maker, which will be really useful later. I also made a lot of money from my pumpkin harvest, which increased my mood for day 71. Shane reminded me that the next day was going to be the fair on the morning of day 71, which I had forgotten about in my rush to go pick up my steel pickaxe from Clint's and break open a few geodes. I accepted another special orders request, this time choosing the Juicy Bugs one. After I headed into the mines, intent on getting down even further, this time reaching floor 105 while I planned out what I would take to the fair the next day. On my way home, I read the Woodcutters Weekly so that I could learn a couple extra foraging tips. Linus taught me how to make sashimi on the morning of day 72 via a recipe in the mail, which I found deeply ironic considering who I was thinking of marrying over Elliot at the start of the playthrough. Once at the fair, I determined that I had gorilla strength before setting up my display, which was sure to be Pierre's. I spent a bit of time at the fair having some fun, of course, starting with the slingshot game, which I found to be really fun, and I did play it for a while before I eventually went and got my fortune. I also had to do some token gambling because it's one of my favorite things to do at the fair, which, to be fair, I did mostly win at. And then I checked out the fishing minigame, which I played for way longer than I'd like to admit. I bought my star drop and told Lewis to finally judge all of the displays, and thankfully he didn't have any bias towards Marnie because I came out the victor with 98 points. After, I bought a rare crow and then I headed home. I accepted a request from Caroline on day 73 before heading to Clint's to break open a geode. I donated to the museum after and then went to the community center where I finished a bundle and completed the entire room, making it my first to finish. The Junimos, aka the Keepers of the Forest, introduced themselves to my stunned character while I admired their work. Alex asked me what I thought about his hair on my way to the mines, so I said that it looked fashionable, to which he agreed. By the time I got to the mines, it was pretty late, so I didn't actually make any progress before bed, but I still had a pretty good day all in all. Day 74 started with me accepting a help wanted request before heading inside Pierre's, where Abigail forced me to play Journey of the Prairie King with her. We eventually beat the first level thanks to my somewhat present skills, so I guess Junimo Kart would have been worse, but I still really didn't want to do it again. Caroline spilled some tea on Pierre while I delivered her request, and her expression made me cackle. I left the whole way to the community center, where I purchased the last vault bundle, meaning I just completed my second favorite room in the community center, which totally distracted me from whatever it was the Junimos had said. I gave Evelyn her request and turned in the ticket she gave me for a fruit tree at Lewis's. On my way out, I spoke to Lewis, and he decided to double down on the Pierre hate, which honestly had me wheezing. I played a duet with Abigail by the lake, and then headed into the mines after. I reached floor level 117 before passing out for the night, meaning that I had officially unlocked my last elevator to floor level 115. The bus got repaired thanks to the Junimo's help, and I reached mining level 7 overnight. Most of my crops were ready for harvest the morning of the 75th day, according to my handy-dandy farm computer, which I got around to harvesting after I paid Joja and accepted Caroline's pumpkin request. I harvested bok choy, corn, sunflowers, eggplants, and even yams, before continuing with the rest of my morning chores. I broke open some geodes in town and then headed over to Sandy's / to the desert for the first time that afternoon. I bought some beet seeds from her and then donated to the community center on my way back home to quite a few different bundles, even completing one. I accepted a request from Clint and then headed straight to bed for the night. Pam sent another battery over on day 76 that I collected before heading into town, where I witnessed a cutscene of Penny helping George get some mail. I thought the way she acted was honestly a little bit rude, so I chose the "you should have asked first" option, which George at least seemed to appreciate. I don't think Penny was as happy as he was with me choosing that option, but I couldn't care less. I accepted another request and then went to visit Caroline in her sunroom, where she told me all about her gardening hobbies and offered me some tea. The tea was interesting, to say the least, and it earned me a tea sapling recipe the next day, so I supposed it was worth it. I finished my day by mining, and I finally hit the bottom of the mines. I celebrated by doing some monster slaying and then getting my quest reward from Clint. My tea sapling crafting recipe was officially logged into the books on day 77, as well as a parsnip soup recipe that I wasn't expecting. I had another absolutely massive harvest today, including cranberries, amaranth, corn, and fairy roses. I turned in my prize ticket in town and read the Friendship 101 book that I got from the machine in exchange. I continued my town-related chores by breaking open a ton of geodes, so many that I had to make a trip home in between to clear out my inventory, and I donated a little to the museum afterwards, which got me a slightly ugly vase. I turned in my quest for Robin and went into the mines to work on my Juicy Bugs order, where I passed out. Day 78 started with me getting a letter from both Joja and Marnie, who gifted me the pale broth recipe. I went about my farm chores and then headed into Clint's to do one of the biggest geode opening hauls I've done this whole playthrough, possibly in my entire Stardew Valley career, which was quickly followed by an equally as big museum donation dump that got me a bear statue. I accepted the rock rejuvenation order on my way to accept another help wanted request, this time from Robin, and I donated to the community center before I went and bought myself a bus ticket. From there, I headed into the Skull Caverns for the first time this playthrough, and honestly, I'm not very good at them, but I did survive an infested floor before I died on level 7. Well, I shouldn't say dead necessarily. Harvey performed major surgery on me, and I was as good as new for the most part, and I leveled up to my first maximum level overnight. For level 10 farming, I chose the artisan profession. Day 79 started with an eerie letter from Mr. Key and a letter from Marnie letting me know there was an expensive piece of equipment that she now had in stock. I turned in my amaranth to her, which I regretted doing after she blitzed at me, giving me quite the jump scare. Not as big of a jump scare as Pierre gave Gus when he tried to scam him out of 25,000 grams for some fresh produce. I told Pierre the truth and told him that he was being extremely greedy, which he didn't like very much. I ignored his bad attitude and gave Marnie a present, and then I went to go upgrade my backpack again since I neglected to do so earlier. A little more monster slaying later in the mines, and I hit level 7 combat overnight. Shane was actually quite sweet to me on day 80 and told me how lucky he is. I collected a mini shipping bin and a piece of bread from the mail and went about my daily chores after, which included a trip into town to break open some geodes and donate to the, you guessed it, museum. I collected a skeleton statue from them as a reward, and then turned in a prize ticket for some mega bombs at Lewis's. I'm really starting to wonder where he gets these prizes for the machine. I gave George a birthday present, and then headed into the mines to do some more monster slaying. My monster slaying turned out to be quite productive because I completed the skeleton goal and I earned a mask for it. I checked in on the other goals before heading home so I could get some good Jedi. Day 81 started with all of my machines being ready, which meant tonight I'd be making quite a lot of money from all of my keg products. Marlon sent me back my fire quartz that I'd requested, and George also sent me a fried eel recipe in the mail. I headed to town to donate to the community center after my chores, and also break open a geode at Clint's. Of course, after that, I had to donate to the museum, where I was able to collect my first drum block as a reward, and then I headed into the mines to slay some more skeletons and some bugs, only taking a break to sell a couple of things to Marlon. Shane reminded me that the end of fall was nearing at the start of day 82, and Clint sent me the geode crusher recipe in the mail. I still took a few geodes to Clint after I finished my farm chores, but I wasn't planning on doing it again anytime soon now that I had that recipe. I ventured to the Skull Caverns later in the day to try and get used to them again, and I was able to reach floor 26 by the end of the day, which I felt was pretty good. Mr. Key sent me 10,000 grams for reaching floor 25 in the Skull Caverns yesterday, and that more than inspired me to do some more monster slaying on day 83 in the regular mines, to continue working towards completing those other monster slaying goals before I headed to the Spirits Eve festival. Once there, I of course talked to Shane and his family before heading over to buy a jack-o'-lantern from Pierre for a bundle, which I'm pretty sure is a first for me. I don't think I've ever purchased a jack-o'-lantern from Pierre before. And then I headed into the maze to talk to the rest of the townspeople, and also to find that golden pumpkin. Just because I made 10,000 grams from Mr. Key in the mail today didn't mean that I still didn't want that 2,500 pumpkin money. I collected my pumpkin, and then I headed home so that I could level up in mining overnight. The Queen of Sauce imparted her last fall recipe to me on day 84, which happened to be artichoke dip. I bought another rare crow from the traveling carts before heading into town and accepting a help wanted request from Clint. Is it just me, or are most of my help wanted requests from Clint? Like, seriously? I feel like every time that I accept a help wanted request, it's almost always from Clint, Robin, or Demetrius. I completed the Spirits Eve bundle and collected 5 complete breakfasts as a reward from that. From there I headed to Clint's and opened even more geodes. I really have to build that crusher soon. And then I donated 1 thing to the museum. I spent the rest of the evening in the Skull Caverns, where I did die at some point, and I lost 2 diamonds that I would have to visit Marlon over at some point. Day 85 marked the start of my final season, Winter. I can't believe that I finally made it here and that day 100 is finally in sight. Shane told me his plan was to binge watch TV this winter, which honestly I would do too if my farmer could. Robin reminded me that my latest coop upgrade gave me an incubator, which I appreciated before I headed to Clint's yet again for another massive geode opening haul that turned into another donation session to the museum. It may be the first of this season, but if I do any more geode breaking and museum donating trips, I may rage quit. The crystal chair that I got certainly wasn't worth the effort, but at least I got a hat from Lewis's after too. And I do love my fashion in Stardew Valley, so that does soften the blow a little bit. I finally caved and bought the wheat flour from Pierre to finish the home cook bundle, which hurt my pride as much as my bank account. I fished the rest of the day and ended it by giving Emily a red mullet that she had requested and turning in my oars request to Clint. Speaking of fashion, by the way, I absolutely love the villagers' new winter outfits. Shane told me how much he loved his life now, and that revealed me for day 86. Robin sent me a rather annoying advert for a wood chipper in the mail, and honestly, I forgot all about it. I did a lot of fishing today in an attempt to get a gold star tuna, I think, but honestly, I don't remember. I just remember being exhausted by the time I turned in my squid quest to Willie and leveled up in level 9 fishing overnight. It was at this point that I doubted I would ever reach level 10. Day 87 started off with my new copper watering can being ready for pickup, so I added that to my ever-growing to-do list. I adopted some ducks today, and for their names I went with beverage themes, choosing tea and juicy. I ran into Shane acting very suspicious at the saloon, and decided if I did again I would confront him about it with the help of Marnie, who really needs to stay out of my business, but I guess I can understand it. I picked up my watering can and turned it in for another upgrade, and since I was there, I went ahead and opened a ton of geodes again. I donated to the museum after, because why not, and then I headed up to Robin's so that I could ask her to do my barn upgrade. I spent the rest of the day fishing down at the beach because apparently I didn't hate it enough to stop yet. On day 88, I ran into Shane leaving the saloon again, and decided to subtly ask what he had been up to. While it wasn't actually that subtle, I was pretty direct, which he seemed to be offended by because he stormed off. I stormed off as well to the museum, where I donated and rearranged a bit. I went to Willie's and bought some fishing supplies before I continued with my fishing escapades outside on the beach. My escapades were very quickly proven successful when I finally caught my gold star tuna, which I quickly donated to the community center, which finished the fish tank and got me a few dish of the seas. The Junimos were happy to help clean everything up, while I celebrated the fact that I was now halfway through the community center. I did a little bit of mining, although I'm really not sure why, and then the Junimos removed the glittering boulder overnight. My steel watering can was ready for pickup on day 89, but I had other chores to attend to first. I bought some goats for Marnie, going with state names this time, because I happened to be listening to a weather livestream IRL while I played because of a weather outbreak, so they ended up being named Ohio and Kansas. Speaking of storms, the Shane Saloon storm finally arrived in full, and I got my explanation for what he had been up to. Apparently, I married a gamer with a Joja Cola obsession, and he was addicted to Journey of the Prairie King, which I honestly can't understand, but to each his own, I suppose. Relieved, I went and accepted a help wanted request before I finally picked up my watering can from Clint's. I totally hadn't forgotten to do this task for most of the day. I had to donate to the museum and community center afterwards, and I finished my day by turning in a prize ticket at Lewis's for another dehydrator I'd have to put in that curse of a cave on my farm. On day 90, Gunther showed up at my house to give me the sewer key finally, and I realized that this was the first and only cutscene I can think of where you can see his full body sprite since he's never at the town events, which is super weird to think about. Like, why isn't he at them? As weird as that is, it isn't as odd as Clint's request that I give Emily a present on his behalf. Like, man, just deliver it yourself. I promise it won't be as embarrassing as this. I was focusing on cleaning up the farm a bit today though, and setting up some sprinklers for my future spring crops, so I did a bit of that before heading into town. I also found a secret note I later forgot that I had. Sam wanted to know what music I liked when I did head into town, so I told him that I liked high energy dance music, even though I doubted it would have an effect. I accepted another request and then delivered a request before finally breaking open some geodes at Clint's. I never thought that I'd be excited for this, but I wanted to finish filling up the museum because I've never actually done it before, and I feel like this run is really the one for that. I donated one thing to the museum and the community center, where I finished a bundle that completed my favorite room. Speaking of favorites, I gave Emily her gift from Clint, but I don't think she realized it was actually from him. I think she kind of thought that it was from me and I got it at his place. But anyway, that was pretty embarrassing. And I leveled up in foraging overnight, and then the Junimos opened up the quarry. After I learned the plum pudding recipe from my weekly Queen of Sauce episode, Pierre let me know that he would be selling new seeds next year to start off day 91, and afterwards I found 2 more recipes and a stack of hay in my mailbox. I know that my mail person must hate to see me coming because I'm either getting bombs delivered or hay that I'm sure messes up their allergies. I spent a little time clearing out the quarry after, and then rather embarrassingly died in the cave beside it while attempting to get my golden sight. I think this might be the first time, embarrassingly enough, that I've ever died going to get my golden scythe, except for maybe the first time that I went to go get it because I didn't have a very good weapon, and at the time I was kind of a Stardew Valley noob, so I didn't actually know what I was going to be getting at the end of it, and I didn't think there were going to be monsters in there, so I don't even think that I had my weaponry on my hotbar. Mortified, I went and opened some mystery boxes at Clint's before making a stop by the traveling cart to pick up a large goat milk. I spent the rest of the night decorating the farm, since that's obviously my biggest passion, and then I headed to bed. Day 92 started with me getting my first iridium bar out of the furnace, and then I donated it to the community center, which completed the dye bundle and got me a seed maker. I visited Krobus for the first time using my brand spanking new sewer key, and I bought a void egg for my coop before heading over to the ice fishing competition, where I fished my little heart out and, as promised, beat Willie, Pam, and Elliot, which earned me several rewards, including a cute little sailor hat. I also bought a tree for the Festival of the Winter Star while I was there, and put it up that night before bed. Before I started decorating the farm to start off day 93, Shane told me again how nice he finds his life now on the farm, and I thought that was pretty sweet, so I ended up giving him a gold star pepper later. Speaking of giving gifts, I gave Evelyn a fairy rose because I happened to have a spare one, and I thought it would be nice to give her something. And then I accepted a help wanted request that I don't think I ever got around to doing, and then I completed another community center bundle and read about Squid Fest for the first time before fishing for the rest of the night. I also found an oddly worded note to bring maple syrup to the secret woods while I was fishing, so I guess I'll be doing that at some point in the future as well, so I might add that to my ever-growing to-do list for day 94. I did even more decorating and rearranging of my farm to start day 94 off, and honestly it was starting to look pretty good, even though it's winter. I normally don't like the way that winter farms look, but I know that this spring this farm is going to look so cute. After, I used the chair trick to get into the secret woods so that I could feed the bear some of its maple syrup. Honestly, it was still kind of creeping me out, but it said that I made a new friend, which was pretty good, and it did give me a purpose for that kind of low-key ugly crystal chair that I got earlier, so honestly, I was pretty pleased with that. I collected some hardwood while I was there, so hopefully I could later upgrade my house so that I could get my nursery. But then I headed home and did a little more rearranging before bed, where I made quite the chunk of change. I upgraded my axe to steel on day 95 before heading to the museum to make a donation. On my way to the mines, I selected the Fragments of the Past special order and a help wanted request from George. I mined for a really long time that night, slaying as many skeletons as possible, and I earned my first prismatic shard from doing so, which I think is the first time that I've ever earned a prismatic shard like that, and honestly I find that pretty cool. Overnight I hit level 10 combat, meaning that I had maxed out yet another skill, and honestly I can't believe I maxed out combat before mining. Day 96 was the first day of Squid Fest, so I very much planned on stopping by the beach after I did all my chores. The wizard sent me a request in the mail that I gladly accepted before I headed over to Clint's to open a few more things. I donated to the museum after, and then on my way down to the beach, I gave Jazz a fairy rose so that she would hopefully stop thinking that I was a stranger, because honestly, I've been married to Shane for a hot minute now, and I really thought she should think of me as something more than a stranger. After that, I fished at the beach for the rest of of the day in hopes that I could get all of the rewards from Squidfest. I had to use my mini shipping bin that Pierre gave me, but I did manage to get all of my rewards even though my inventory was overflowing. So all in all, I think all the work I had to put into Squidfest more than evened out. I got the alert that my steel axe was ready on the morning of day 97, so I added it to my daily to-do list. I learned how to cook chowder from Willie's very helpful recipe, and then I completed the wizard's quest on my way over to Clint's. I had to break open a few more mystery boxes after I got my axe, so it was super late before I finally made my way to the mines for the evening, where I spent the entire night collecting bone fragments until I literally passed out. I guess I'll be having to pay Jojo one more time this playthrough for passing out. My final quinoa sauce recipe for the 100-day run was a chocolate cake, which I thought was pretty accurate considering that is my favorite type of cake. Day 98 continued with Harvey charging me 1,000 grams, so I guess this time it wasn't actually Jojo. And Caroline also sending me a parsnip, which I have to say was much more appreciated than the bill from Harvey. I did more decorating on my farm, and then I headed into the mines so that I could slay more skeletons until I remembered that the museum had already closed, meaning that I failed my final special order for this run, which was so sad. Like, honestly, I can't believe it. I also found a lost book and Jack Be Nimble, Jack Be Thick again at the beach, and then I headed home to bed. A new chick hatched on the morning of day 99, and I named it Tina for a reason that I honestly don't remember, and I'm not quite sure that I had a reason, to be honest. Also, I totally forgot to mention, but I found an auto petter in the Skull Caverns at some point prior to today, so I'm pretty sure that's been in my coop this whole time. I accepted the rock rejuvenation special order, and then I accidentally found a dinosaur egg outside of Robin's house. I couldn't believe my luck, and I went to break open a mystery box at Clint's to see if maybe the luck could continue before I made a donation to the museum. And just so you don't worry, I saved the egg to incubate instead of donating it because I wasn't sure when I would get another. I got another rare crow as a reward from the museum, and then I gave Alex my spare Jack Be Nimble, Jack Be Thick book since I know it's a loved gift, and he did seem to appreciate it. After that, I did some fishing at the night market, bought a red cabbage seed for later, and the portrait of Shane, and also the available painting. I gave out some coffee to the people at the market, and then I headed off to bed. Today was day 100, and I planned on being as productive as possible. I accepted a help wanted request and delivered a gold bar to Abigail to complete her help wanted request before completing the rock rejuvenation special order, which means that my last special order was actually not a fail. I got a plant using a prize ticket at Mayor Lewis's, which did remind me that I wanted to do just a touch more decorating on the farm before I went to bed, so I did that until I went to the night market at about 7ish p.m. I bought another painting to possibly decorate my house with, because I am starting to think about aesthetically what I want the inside of the house to look like, especially once I start to expand it. Then I finished off the rest of the day with a little more decorating of Cozy Farm outside, of course, and then day 100 ended with me getting a little over 8,000 grams overnight. And that is it for my 100 days of Stardew Valley. I can't believe that I finally completed my first 100 days of Stardew, and I honestly can't wait to try and explore the next 100, and I am deeply considering doing a 200 days of Stardew Valley video, so if you guys want me to do that, do let me know in the comments down below, and subscribe if you really want to see it, because I don't want you guys missing when I do release that video if I do decide to do it. Until next time, I hope you guys have enjoyed this epically long video, and I will see you guys in the next one.